I'm in a pretty decent mood, so that's usually a good sign. I have a specific thing I want to get done today related to my 3D diagramming. So I want to make some helper functions for different view orientations, and I can go from there. If that gets done quickly, then I'll think of some other stuff. But we should just have some fun and get right into it, I think. Give me 1 second. I just realized I'm getting messages, of course, at this time. Let's see. Sorry about that. You know, life keeps happening around you, right? Sometimes you gotta answer messages, but that's okay. So what I want to do today, so I split things up a little bit here. Someone recommended to me while I was streaming the other day to do some blog related posts and stuff from time to time, and pardon me, I think that's a really great idea. So what I have now is two different things here. I have kind of my scratch pad here, notes, rough notes in the top here for my stream stuff, right? So today I'm working on a Cad View thing, and I have a little snippet that I prepped just beforehand here to test with. And then here I have a notes.org file. So I'm just kind of slowly going to add the idea is stuff like this. So let's say I have a note on recursion, which I need to have a better understanding of if I want to keep using it more and more in my transforms and stuff. Then something's not letting me scroll very nicely here. There we go. Right, so right in programming. So the idea is this notes file over time, I have prose about the code or concept, and then here code snippets describing / showing the idea. So in the case of recursion, right, you've got recursive example, and then you create some example, which I'm not going to do now, but the idea is I create a notes file for my blog, and every one of these entries, well, basically the notes file, what I think I want to do is compile it to HTML and put it on GitHub, and also so I can have a GitHub pages thing where my notes are updated, and then have a mirror on a server or something as well. So the general idea is at least this is a kind of spot where I can capture things that would be cool to have on the blog. Obviously, while I'm doing programming, it's useful for programming stuff, but it could just as easily be for, okay, design related notes, right? Because some of the time what I do is design work. Here. 1 second, answering my phone again. That's my bad. Yeah, so the notes, there'll be a lot of programming concepts, but they could easily be design concepts or engineering things, right? Like if I forget how to do a stress analysis on a beam in, compression loading or tension loading. Who knows? It could just be popped into the notes file here as I go. But that's kind of the idea here. This split is, maybe it ends up being silly as a split to do, but here is like tasks I want to get done and some snippets that are useful for the day, for the stream, and then little thoughts of tasks to do here, and then concepts and code and ideas that are useful or potentially useful as blog posts will go in this spot here. So that's the idea there. Now, as for what I'm doing today specifically here, I have just the one thing here, what I'm calling Cad View, and what I mean by that is this. I think I mentioned this before one time. You've got, here's an example. This is a mechanical drawing. It's very common to have a, let's see if I can expand it just a bit. Yeah. Right, it's really common to have, for parts or small assemblies, you have this 4-view standard approach. You've got a front view, side, usually the right or the left depending, and then a top view, and then you have an isometric view looking at, so front, side, and then the top is also visible. So what I want to do is make a helper function that creates a CAD view of whatever part I pass into it automatically for me. So I'm going to just do that today. And so what I want to do is just have a little spot in this file. Let's make a, so I'm just going to make a little, let's see, what would I call it? Cad View work in progress, right? Okay, so we'll just do that, and then we'll space it out a little bit so I can control scrolling and whatnot. Hopefully that should build okay. I've got the build viewer here and the live server here. So I think everything should still be working okay. Let's have a look. Cad View, okay, perfect. So what I want to do is have a little bit of fun with the sample piece that I create. So I actually am going to copy this into there. This is a simple, hopefully simple, little design. Okay, so if I define letter A, move this, what I want to do is create let me see here. Let's go letter A like that. Let's see if that builds for me the way I hope it does, or if it spits out an error. There's an error. How long can it be cast to? Well, okay. If I wrap it in this, it might work. I'll have a look. Still no. Of course, this isn't done yet. This is just a, I have to, so this letter A thing here is actually just a sketch, right? A 2D sketch. So let me go remind myself what I have to do to make it actually work. I have to define polygon 2D, and then I have to extrude that. So let me not get ahead of myself here. Letter A sketch is to call polygon 2D. Right? Yeah. Of this list. Oh, right. I'm not in. I'm not in the. What am I saying? I'm not in. I'm in a markdown file, so Clojure won't properly automatically tab and all that. So formatting is going to be a little goofy in this window for now, but I can fix that later. So that's more or less okay. So I have a polygon 2D, right? And then if I do def letter A, I can extrude that. And extrude takes the sketch and then the height to extrude it. So letter A sketch, and I want to extrude it by 2. So there we go, we have a valid letter A piece. And now let's see, so these errors make sense because I wasn't done defining the thing there. So now we have it built successfully, and we have a letter A here. It looks kind of goofy, and the view isn't the way the orientation isn't what I wanted it to be, but that's not a problem. Let's only extrude it by 1 actually. Might look a little cooler. Yes, okay. Let me apply a rotation to this. Unrelated to what I'm programming right now, I hope everyone's having a good day. Thanks for tuning in. If you're watching this live, that's really cool. Feel free to join in on the chat, ask questions, talk about projects you're working on, all that kind of stuff. If you're watching this later, thanks for that too. Feel free to leave comments. Let me know what's good, what you want to see more of, that kind of thing. I'm really enjoying streaming, and I'm going to keep doing this more and more. I want this to turn into something that I can be really proud of. Right now I'm really excited about it, and I can see a lot of things that I want to keep doing better and better. So feel free to participate in the growth of this. That'd be really cool. I'd love that. If you're just interested in chilling, listening, and not talking, that is totally cool too. I appreciate the view, and I appreciate that you might not always want to participate in everything all the time, you know? Just thanks for coming out and enjoying the show. Right, so I have to, if I move this by 22 like that, should pop back into view. There we go. If I do a 2D view, I should see the top view of this, and it might look goofy, but right, so there we go. It's upside down from what I want, but this is like a letter A that I'm using as a test shape. That's all. So if I draw faces, now on an earlier stream I made a draw faces function that kind of works, but it's not complete because you have the ordering of faces isn't perfect, and that's partly because I have not created the idea of a scene in a camera. I'm just pretty much directly drawing nodes, edges, and then faces in a onto an SVG canvas. But because of that, I made a lot of assumptions and just did kind of a naive implementation, which works as a starting point and works okay when you do draw edges, but breaks down when you need to or want to render things where there's occlusion and all that kind of stuff. So it's going to look a little goofy until I have the time and energy to make a more thorough implementation of camera and proper hidden lines removal and stuff like that. But that all comes later on because I don't really need it for the first pass of my design work. I will need it, but it'll come later. Okay, so let me also add to this list this should work, I think. Let's see if I break it. Okay, it didn't oh, right. When there's more than one item, I do have to wrap it in a list. Well, this is a vector in this case, but that's fine. Pardon me. That's fine. It still didn't work. That's too bad. Well, okay. Does this work on its own? Okay, so there's something wrong with how I've defined axes. Call it fine for the time being. So let's do a move. No, stylo dot okay. The chunk one here. If I have a look at transforms, I have two transforms that that are useful right now. I have rotation and move. So move takes first the object and then, okay, let's leave it down here as a reference, and up here we'll go back here. Okay. Boy, oh boy, I've got a lot of things on my screen today. That's fine for now. Important thing is this is the REPL where I can run Clojure code. In theory, there we go. I have my document rendered view here, which I'm going to zoom out a little bit, just like that. And I've got my notepad, scratch pad at the top, and my notepad down here. Simple, can't go wrong. And this is the document I'm editing here, and this is the code in the prototype library. I don't know why I quoted that. It's exactly what it is. Okay, so move letter A. If I move it, let's see, 5 in the X direction. If this is working the way I think it is, I should see another copy of this A kind of show up about here. Yes. Okay, so we've got some form of success going on here. So let's see here. An example of a this snippet comes from the chunk.clj extension for my stylo library. Still a whip, work in progress. It is used as a very simple rendering tool. How do I, well, notes, okay, that's fine for later. Okay, so the recursive thing that I'm just popping into my notes here is draw edges dash work in progress. Which shows up here, right here. So here I need to paste that, draw edges, recursive, and I zip up here to the regular draw edges, which currently is still useful here. Now, that's a note, and all that means is here, notes.org file should be used as basis for creating blog posts. Begin either use .org HTML export feature or come up with basic flow for using my own stylo lib to create nice looking HTML pages or something like that. Okay, that's fine for later. Okay, so there, recursion has a kind of example to it right now. The data is assumed to be a tree structure represented by lists. This means there can be nested lists. A leaf on the tree is of the structure like this. It's a map with nodes, edges, faces. So there we go. The idea of assemblies in the library at this time is just lists of the maps of items which have the above structure. Very simple. So their recursion example, I think little note to myself, can recursion that transforms node leaves on a tree structure be abstracted into some kind of macro, right? So def macro that takes, let's say, tree and then transform function and then code that runs transform that runs xf on leaves, right? That's some kind of like syntactical sugar, if you will, that takes that particular pattern and just makes it so easy to apply transforms that might already exist, I don't know. Okay, so that's fine for that. This file watching thing, if anyone is interested, is just the little command that I have to run this here. The little watcher, it's a little program, fs watch, and then you can specify that to watch a particular file. Then you pipe that into xargs. So what happens is fs watch on any change to the file you specify will print to the console that file name and path. So then you can pass it into xargs, and it'll take any whatever, like it'll form this command clj-m stylo builder and then basically paste the file path into here. So that's all that is. Very simple. Now the problem, of course, is that it only works technically in my dev folder for stylo because I haven't compiled it or anything yet. It's just running the dev code directly, which for right now works fine. Okay, so actually what I want to do, I want to get this A shape oriented differently. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Let me close up this code for a minute though, so that it's not cluttering things up. Then again, I do need to see transforms again. Rotate takes the object and then the XYZ rotations, applying them first around Z, then Y, then X. So like Euler rotations basically. I think that's what it's called. It's not quaternion based, which would be cool and might be something I'll do later. But for right now, I'm not going to worry too much about it. Right, so here I want to do rotate this object by, let's start with a single axis. So let's rotate it first about, let's see here, X. Rotate it 90. Well, okay, so it's standing up. And then let's do Z. Will that rotate it the way I want it to, or will it just mess it up? I'll find out. 90-90 like this. There we go, that's what I'm looking for. And that'll be good enough for what I'm trying to do today. That'll be just fine. So if I comment this part out for a moment and go here and draw into there a move 20-2, draw edges 2D, of letter A. Oops. Let's go save that. Okay, so that's the top view now, which is correct, but not very informative, but that's fine. That's exactly what I'm working on, a Cad view, right? It doesn't need to be, it doesn't need to, like in isolation, and for this particular part, it doesn't really need to make sense, so that's fine. So if I actually look, if I go to the draw part of what the draw functions here, let's zip this up a little bit here. If I go to my draw functions that I'm working on now, I did the laziest thing, right? So draw edges 2D and draw edges are identical functions. The only difference is in draw edges 2D, I commented out this macro, this thread first macro that, pardon me, that transforms the object to be visually oriented like an isometric view. Okay, so that's what's happening here. Draw edges and draw edges 2D are exactly the same. So what I want to do probably is create a function, or like modify these in a way that passes in as an optional argument or something. My phone keeps distracting me. That's my apologies. I'll hide it. Let's see here. I just need to check that my stream's going okay. It looks like it so far. Nice. Okay. So I need a draw edges function that takes the thing to draw and the orientation, right? Where orientation is basically the transforms to the shape here that end up drawing it at whatever angle. So that's the theoretically easy way to do it. So let's leave this part let's leave this draw edges one alone for the time being, and we'll modify draw edges 2D. We'll give it row and orientation, where orientation has the shape, right? It looks like I want to define orient as a function. Oof, that's zipping things all over the place. Let me split that for a moment. Yep. Define orient. It'll take the object, the renderable object, RO, and will take the orientation like that. Okay. And what it's going to do is thread first row through rotate Let me think for a moment. Instead of doing the thread first approach, I might do it like this. I might do something like this, where I create a let statement up here. Transformed row, or transformable renderable object. We'll call it that for now. Partial of rotate row. Okay, so this now becomes a function that expects as only one argument. Since rotate takes two arguments, it takes the object and then the deltas, or the zx or zy x angles of rotation, right? That is that. Then all I have to do is map x row over orientation because orientation could be any number of adjustments, right? Just like this first one, it takes 1, 2, 3, like that. Eesh, maybe that's not the smartest. Well, we'll see. We'll make it, and then we'll test out if it makes any sense. Map x row. No, it also won't work. I need to. I can't do it that way. I can't do it that way because this partial function here has the original object, and if I need to transform it a few times, it'll just be doing a singular transform. Like, it'll transform the original for the first transform, and then it'll transform the original for the second transform. But what I need it to do is apply the transform to the shape, and then apply to that new shape the next transform. So that's why I used the thread first macro here originally, and now I need to figure out a smart way. I could maybe do it as a macro or something, but I wonder if that starts to get convoluted. Well, let's go even a step easier here. We'll make this function here. We'll do it just like this. It is a function it just takes the object, right? And in the case of ISO, that's all it does is the thread. We'll just do it simply. We'll do this like it'll just be these. That'll be the whole thing there. Just like that. There, orient ISO. Okay, which means orientation will be a function, right? You pass the object and then the orientation function, and then this row you just transform with that. So you do it like this. Row is orientation of row, right? Since whatever function, it'll take this kind of shape, right? So you can actually identity, does that do, if you do identity of anything, does it just return the thing? It looks like it. That's wrong. That's what I meant. Right, so it kind of looks like defin orient top takes row, and for right now, there, it's just identity row, which is equivalent to just writing row renderable object like that. Keep it simple for the time being. Orient top, orient front, front, there we go. Object, it's going to be just a single rotation. Row, is it going to be a single rotation? It might be a double rotation. Okay, so top is the default. I want to do (9090), I think. Okay, let's save those. Row orientation. So this is going to not render properly now. So if I do this, draw edges 2D, letter A, and I do orient ISO, will that work? I will find out. No. The answer is no. And the reason is some reason that I'm not familiar with yet. That's okay though, I can start to think about it. Oh. So I probably don't have them tangling together the way I need them to be. So if I do that, let it try to rebuild again. Something went weird. Am I missing something? Maybe. oh, here, this function's garbage. Didn't even complete it. Okay, tangled, will it rebuild? Yes, okay, there we go. Okay, we've got something. Let's do orient top. Okay, orient front. Well, that's the wrong orientation. Which means, let's have a look first at this Euler angle thing here. Pardon me. All right. Did it do anything? Huh. Oh, of course. Right. Because it's a different file, it didn't detect a change. So I have to save it there. Okay, so that's still incorrect. Although actually, that is actually better as orient top. Copy orient front. Okay, now let's do 90-0-90. Should be, maybe that's orient front. Maybe that's what I'm looking for. Once again, waiting for it to change when it's not going to change. There we go. Okay, that's the front. That's looking like what I want it to. Let me scooch this down a little bit here so that I can see it in the view. There we go. Do you like, I cheated a bit here. Well, cheated. I haven't made, so the extrude function and the sketches idea that I have right now is actually just simple polygons, which currently has no concept built in of multiple paths. So polygon can only have a single path, which means it can only be a fully enclosed shape with no holes in it. But in reality, it's really useful to draw shapes that have holes in them. So an obvious example is, say, the letter A. If you want to make a path of it, right? Technically you've got path 1, which follows the outer line, and then path 2 cuts out the hole in the top of the letter A. But since I didn't build that into my concept of a sketch yet, I cheaped out, or I went lazy with it and made a path that actually travels like this. It starts here, goes horizontal, then vertical, then like this, then right up like this, then around, and then back down. So that's what this is here for. It extrudes and looks fine, minus there being this hole here, because it turned what would have been two paths into a single path. So that's what this line is here. It's technically two. If I inspect this, it's actually gonna be, if I delete this, right, there's actually two polylines there. If I inspect that, not that, here, wrong polyline, no, there we go, no, oh right, inspect, what am I doing with, there's so many lines because this is technically still a 3D object. I haven't done any culling of the total number of edges, so there's still a huge amount of edges and stuff in there, which will be a project for another day as well, because figuring that out, probably I'll need the idea of a scene and all that kind of stuff, which I can do. I just need to sit down and really clean it up and get it done, you know? Let's see if I can actually find it and delete it. It's around here somewhere. There's one. Delete. There'll be one more. I don't know, I don't need to be doing this, but I want to prove to myself that I'm thinking about this properly. Hope everyone's having a good day. Feel free to talk in the chat if you're interested. If you're not, that's cool too, no worries. Just glad you're watching, you know? And I'm curious what you know, any projects that people are working on, anything fun that they're enjoying doing right now, anything that they're struggling with, you know? I'd love to hear it. It's weird, I know it's in here, but I can't find it. There it is. Yes, okay, so in theory, right, this path, this sketch would be it's two paths. So you've got the outer path like this, and then you've got the whole, which is another closed path that's fully enclosed inside there. So for sketches, I haven't done anything smart like that yet. A sketch is so far represented as just a single list of 2D points. So there's no concept of multiple paths. The simplest way to do that would be actually for sketches in chunk, consider representing them as lists of points. This way you can have holes inside polygons. Now the trick there is when it comes to faces, right, you might have now the definition for faces gets more complicated, increases complexity around faces because some paths may be the because some paths cut faces, not like with holes inside polygons. So that's something to think about, but for the time being, it it doesn't matter actually. For getting this thing done, I don't need to worry about that. So I shouldn't really sidetrack myself by talking about it all that much, but sometimes I can't help myself. That's the way it goes sometimes, you know? A little bit of distraction is kind of normal. I don't know. I'm having fun with this either way. All right. Let me check one moment here. If there's anyone watching now who gave me a follow recently and I didn't see it earlier, I appreciate that. Thank you very much, by the way. If you're watching now and you like this and you haven't followed, please do. It's helpful for me. It's really nice to see the numbers slowly eking up a little bit. It's encouraging. And it's just kind of cool. You know, it'd be nice to grow that number, grow the group of people following, commenting, watching. Go right ahead. Or don't. It's totally up to you, of course. Okay. To finish up the orientations, we've got a top view, a front view, and now we just need a right view for the time being. Define orient right, which takes let's go here, takes the object and rotates the object by some set of rotations. Helpful, eh? Let's do, I think this might be it here, 0, 90, 90 like that. We'll try it. Save that and then go here and move it over a little bit like that. Okay, should also make this say the right word. We want to test the right orientation. So if this is correct, the A should rotate like that, but it's incorrect, so it rotated like that. It fell over, basically. What does it look like if I do 90, 90, 90? Let's find out. Oops. All right, so that's not working. If I go back to I think actually what I need is just this. I don't need to rotate it around Z because Z is pointing out at the screen. I think I just need to rotate it around Y to make it stand up. And if that doesn't work, then I'll do it in a two-stage sort of thing until I get what I need exactly. Because I'm not thinking through the Euler angles properly in my head. The order in which they're applied does matter. Rotating about Z first, then Y, then X is different. It will get you a different orientation than rotating X, then Y, then Z. Whereas move, so translates, they will work in any order that you apply them. You'll get the same output. It's like adding together vectors will, no matter what, it's order independent, but the transforms for rotation is order dependent. I'm just repeating myself. Okay, so right, if we look at orient ISO, what I want to do is move these closer to here. Did I try this yet? Let me just try one more thing here. I just moved these down to where they're being used so that it's not confusing, or it's less confusing, arguably. There we go. Right, so we've got the first four camera orientations that I want to use. So now that I have that, let me go to this here. Let me expand my window that I'm working in here to 720, 720. This is a little bigger in the vertical direction. And we're going to I'm gonna first hard code. Let's go 0, 0 in the move, okay? And we'll kind of go quadrant by quadrant here. So we've got in this spot here, I want it to be the top view. In this spot here, I want it to be the front view. Let's start with the front because that makes a little more intuitive sense to me. And then we'll go bottom left is front view, this is right view, front, right, ISO, and then the top left is top, like that. So I'm going to well, for now, I will just say 0, 0 for that one. This one, no, front can't be 0, 0. It has to be 0. Try 10, 10, 20, 20, 0, 0, 0. Those are going to be all wrong, but I'm just getting a layout. Yeah, so these have to move in. The front one has to move. So you have to move down 20 instead of 10. These have to move in 10, 20. No, let's do 20. Okay, I totally messed this up. Okay, front. I want to move it in 20, and I want to move it, I want to have it down 40. Okay, we'll try that. And then the right view will have to be down 40 as well, and I want to move it over this 10, 40, 20, 40, 20, 10, 10, 10. See if that makes any sense. Not really. I'm just guessing at the numbers for position. So let's actually just ignore everything for now except the front view. Let's start there. Keep that simple. Okay, so let's make it 5 and down 20. Let's try that. So if that works, then I want to see the A kind of about here. So let's do 25. Yeah, okay. Then right will also be 25, and it'll be 20 seems good. So that should be here. Yep. ISO here is at 2010, and then top has to match with this 510. There we go. Okay, so that's a start. So what I've got here, right, is a kind of nice, this is the front, and if you imagine the projection of the right, like they're lined up exactly, so the height is the same here, height's the same here. Likewise with the top view, it's up like that, and then the isometric view is kind of the mush of mush is the technical term of all of those. So the one problem I just realized is this doesn't make sense. Draw edges 2D is a misnomer when you can put an isometric angle in there, right? Because that's not 2D, it's a 3D isometric view. So instead of draw edges 2D, what I could do is now replace draw edges 2D with draw edges. Yeah, actually, that's what I want to do. So I want to make a default. So first thing to do here, well, let me split this so it doesn't do a weird pop. Okay, so we have the first So what I want to do is have a double arity function here so that it can, if I call draw edges without an orientation, it provides a default orientation in there, which will be let me undo what I've just done there for a moment. Okay, so we close the function, draw, this is the, there you go, yeah, you do it like this. So that if you call it without an orientation, like this, the simple or a simple way to do this, draw edges, you do draw edges, you call the same function, but you provide it with a with an orientation by default. So orientation is row orient ISO, like that. So that's the case one. Well, it's not cases, that's the wrong way to describe it. If it's got a singularity, so you pass draw edges just a single thing. So now I should be able to do this. And then if I do without orient ISO, it should still look the same. So first I save this to tangle it together. And then I save this to let it build for a moment. Then I should, so it refreshed, which means it built successfully and there's no visible change, which is good. So for example, now if I take my front view line here, which is right here, and I get rid of orient front, this, when it rebuilds, should turn into an isometric view again because it is just putting ISO as the default, which is working. Good. That is what I want. Like that. Which does mean, technically, everything should still render fine here. So this works because the default view is ISO. This is all still, it should all still be working the way I intended, which is great. Let me actually, I just realized something scrolling up through the top here. I have this. If I open up here, yeah. I want to rework my namespace declaration here for a moment. I don't need the use if I do this. Load file, use that. That should be fine. That should all be okay. So if I save this, nothing should break. I really hope. We'll find out quickly. Yeah, it broke. Okay. Unable to resolve symbol GW in this context. Why would that be? Global width. Oh, I see. So I made a mistake here. The reason GW couldn't be, like, I put the definitions for some globals up even above the namespace. So what's happening is when this is run, it's running in the user namespace and doing these, and then it's doing this, which moves it into a new namespace. So in the new namespace, these symbols aren't defined. So that's what's happening there. Which means all I have to do is put this in the right spot, which I will. And I'll just put it up here. That should be fine. I think. We'll see. We'll let it rebuild. So this is built with theoretically no problems. In theory, it's fine. Okay, now I have the idea set up. I've got this working out okay. So the next thing I want to do is make a more convenient function to automatically provide this kind of a view setup when all I give it is the shape and perhaps the scale of a thing. So what I'm going to do is have a look at, if I go up here into the draw namespace of my main library, I have containers here. And what I have is this figure container, which is extremely useful. It's what I'm using to build this, right? So what it does when I call it here, it gives a default size and a default scale. The scale of which might need to change, but I'll work on that later. And then it gives me just this simple hiccup data structure. Okay? All it's doing is wrapping the SVG that I give the figure, the content, in a div that has the class figure with a paragraph following the SVG with a since the paragraph is in a div that's figure, I have a little bit of CSS built in that gives it that italic look. So when I call figure, all I ever have to do is provide the sizing and the description as a string, and then the content, and it'll show up nicely. So I've used that here, I've used it here, and it works really nicely. So basically what I want to do is not in the, well, maybe what I'm thinking is something like this. Define quadrant figure, something like that, where what it does is split whatever size and scale I give a thing into 4 smaller things with the same scale and the same, well, yeah, Yeah, so I think that might be I think that's an acceptable approach. It kind of makes sense to me. Description and content. So what's different here is I need 4 distinct bits of content because it'll go into the quadrant 4 times. So I actually Q1, I kind of need Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, right? Where then it calls basically figure 4 times. But I'll have to hold that thought for a minute because I have to go to the washroom for a minute. So I'll be right back. I'm back. Okay, so let me see. I could yeah, let's lead with this and see what we come up with. Quadrant figure. Call it with. Let's assume the default size for this is going to be as big as it can be in the document, and the default scale. $25 makes sense, I guess. That's a fine default. Description, and then Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. Messy signature, but it's a starting point that I'll be happy to use for now, because I can always change stuff later, right? So here, the signature is like above, width, height, scale. Pardon me, description. Oh, I put and content there, so that forces it into a list automatically. It doesn't matter. Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4, like that. Then we do a div. Now here's where it'll actually be different, right? It'll be div. Yeah, no, it can still be in the figure figure like that. Then it's SVG. Actually, prior to that, let's do a let. We shall do quadrant width. Right? Yeah, quadrant width is the width divided by 2. And the quadrant height is the height divided by 2, like that. Scale is the same. So all we need is inside figure. This will be wrong, but I'll start with the wrong thing and work my way to the right thing. Q width, Q height, scale. And then content is Q1. Copy that. Paste, paste, paste. Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. That is a fine starting point. And then right after that, we just have the paragraph with the description. Then we close off the div tag and close the function. Oh, did I do something wrong? I did indeed. Right here, I need that. This should be all the same. And this, close the let, close that, close the function. Okay, so now we have quadrant figure in the draw namespace. So, as a start, let's save this. And then, once that tangles, we'll go here and we'll try to call it in this section here. So if it's going to work the way I'm expecting, it will incorrectly draw the SVGs in a vertical stack. So what'll happen is I'll only see this one and this one because I'll only see Q1 and Q2 because Q3 and Q4 will be drawn Q3, Q4 in a vertical stack, and it'll be cut off from the SVG view. So we'll start there, and I'll adjust as I go because that seems fine. Let's see, manageable, I should say. Okay. Let's test it by, instead of calling here figure, we do quadrant figure, right? Which has as its arguments the size, the description, and the let me just get rid of this part now entirely. I don't need it anymore. Right. So quadrant figure, size, description, Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4 contents. Right? So I'm going to go ahead and actually these should all be the same now. 5, 25, because the movement will be local to its quadrant. Let's see if any of that works. Okay, so the document renders, but it doesn't show me anything, and that's fine. Except now I need to figure out why. So does any content exist in the SVGs? Let's find out. Indeed, the content is there, it's just not visible. Okay, so that's a fine, that's a good start. Let me also inspect this element here. No, sorry, I need to inspect, oh boy, class figure. Well, let me see. 1, 1. Okay, I overshot here a little bit. 10 makes more sense. Save that. Close that. Okay, there we go. So we have the quadrants. They're all rendering correctly. I mean, according to how I wrote the code, but they're not right because I want them to fit side by side. So the way to do that would be probably if I could add here flex flow. Display flex. Not quite. grid. Grid column. There's got to be a simple, fairly simple way to handle this, right? You'd think. So display flex is close to what I want. Flex flow. That's not what I need. Flex flow, flex wrap. Wrap. Okay, let me see if that makes sense. That's weird. Okay. Don't need that. Flex wrap width 800 pixels. Yeah, okay. So that makes a bit of sense. So if I do right, if I add to that figure these flex wrap and then give it a width, then it will wrap things around. The quadrants will be in the wrong spot, but I can fix that. But then it'll display pretty much like what I want. Will it work if I do width 100%? Appears not. So I have to give it a hard value. But okay, I can work with that. That can be fine. So that's kind of what I want it to look like, of course, where the quadrants are in the right positions. That is okay. That looks pretty good. One other thought I had just now is, so each quadrant is its own SVG. Someone might theoretically want a version of this where it's not 4 SVGs but one SVG quadrantized itself. So I could do quadrant figure and quadrant SVG as its own thing later on. But for right now, I'm just going to only do the quadrant figure because it's pretty straightforward, or it's relatively easy to do. So here, if I do div, the class is figure, what I can do is do style, where the value style has display flex. I forget what I put it on. Let me inspect the figure element again for a moment. Figure, I need display flex, flex wrap, 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 and width. There we go, width. Does it break if I don't put pixels there? Yeah. Invalid property. So width is string pix. And the width of the figure is actually the width of the width here, so the full thing, which makes reasonable sense to me. So let's see if that makes the difference. Let's see if I did that right and that shows up the way I want it to. I can find out. The letter A. Okay. If it's right, this figure should move things over. It's not right. And why might that be? Let me inspect this. Let's look at the figure here. This element, if I increase the width, will it work? It does. So 720, 721, 722. It might be because I have padding on the SVG. Wait a minute. $30, $21, $25, $26, $27. Okay. Why? I could actually, here, let me try something else for a moment. So this is a div, I'm nesting it by one more level. Here, like that. Should still be right. So div figure's still the same. Let's try that. But first, before I do that, does SVG, do I have it that's fine. Element has nothing attached to it. It doesn't look like I have any padding. No, I don't. I don't have any padding on the SVG parts themselves. So let's see if this makes the difference. Let's rebuild it and see what it looks like. There we go. Okay. So what I did there, right, the only thing I changed, before I had put the flex style onto the figure div itself, and when that happened, I actually had all four quadrants in the flex flow and the paragraph. So there were 5 items in the flex flow, but because the paragraph has some width to it, it throws off, I guess, when things fit into the flow. So if I nest it further in a div there, now all 4 things will flow exactly into the space available. At least that's the theory that I'm working with at the moment. So in order for me to get the quadrant order the way I hope it is, right? I've got let's see, proper quadrant order. quadrant 1, 2, 3, 4. Is that right? It might be. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's reasonably consistent. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, okay. So I have to render those in that order instead. So, okay, let me fix that up now. Let me do that in the right order. So I want Q1 to be ISO, Q2 to be, so isometric has to go here, Q2 should be top, Q3 should be front, and Q4 should be right. So let me first make sure I'm right here, I'm referencing the correct orders here. So I've got orient ISO, orient top. Here I have orient front, and this should be right. Okay, so that's that. Save that. Then to make it, so I probably have to switch these around as well. Okay, so in order for that to work, Q1 has to be where top currently is, which is here. Q3 looks like it's in the right spot, and Q4 looks like it's in the right spot. So let's see if that's right. There we go. Okay, that's great. Now, see if this will work or if this will break. Should work. Obviously the faces thing isn't complete, but suppose I broke it. Oh, right. I didn't update draw faces to work the same way yet, so let me do that. Extensions, chunk, draw. Now I can delete this comfortably because I don't need it anymore. And work in progress draw functions here, right? Draw edges whip should be recursive. And now draw faces. Right, I want to cut no, we'll leave it like that for now. So right, the way I've done draw edges has the default, and then this is exactly the same. Draw faces. Okay. Start with this one, row orientation. Then this disappears like that. Row orientation, it looks the same, that's fine. Yeah. Then close it up like that. Yeah. It's popping in the wrong spot there. Fine. And then here it's just row. And then I want to just call draw faces with row and orient ISO. Should be exactly the same. Close that function. So that now has the same structure to draw edges, right? Row, draw faces, row, orient ISO is the default. Row orientation, where row is transformed by the orientation function that's passed in, and everything else works the same. So this reference is gone. Save that. And now draw faces of the ISO should work when I save that. Unless I've still made an error somewhere, eh? I changed the name of something and I'm referencing the old name somewhere else. Yes, up here. Hey, there we go. All right, now we're getting somewhere. Faces. Wonder how that looks on all the other views. That's strange to me that this. Why would that be? Let me inspect this element. Delete it. Why might that look that way? I really don't know, actually. Well, that'll be something to fix later. in theory it should be fine. Let me see. First off, let me change these 4, 5, 5, 4. These, what if I make them 1/4 inch? And these also 1/4 inch. So there will be a noticeable gap in the middle of the A bridge here. Oh. That doesn't solve anything. And this looks better with the half, actually. Actually, I just had an idea. I wonder if I, instead of these two, go 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 2, and then these are not there. Then I go immediately to 1, 4, 2, 4, 2, 3, 1, 3. Sorry, let me do it like this so I have the original still there. 1, 3, 1, 2. Let's see if that looks better. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. The answer is it won't, because it's wrong. Right, so I've got 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 2. Oh, I don't need this either. This 1, 2 doesn't need to be there. There we go. So I actually noticed something. See this? What I think is the front view is actually the back view, because if this is the front view looking like on this way, then I would expect the line to be on the left side, which it's not. So I actually have to fix my orientation calls here, which now I'm gonna do. It's in extensions, chunk, transforms, no, draw, right, I have it here. So if I orient the front this way, 90, 90, I actually want is this gonna work? 180. Save that. Let's have a look. Nope. If I do that, I have to manipulate it further. Okay, so instead of that, let me try that. It rotated around Z 90 and then 180, so 270 all the way around. Does that end up in the place I expect? Keep forgetting to save this file. I forget that. So earlier on I had a workflow, I was working all in the same file, so then when I save it, things change right away. There we go. That's looking okay. But obviously it's not lined up anymore, which is a bit of a problem. that I have to figure out how to work with. So one thing I'm not doing with the rotations is it's just rotating it about whatever origin point. Like, it's basically, it gets the object, it gets its nodes, and the rotation is just doing math on the nodes only. It doesn't care about the center point of those nodes, so it's not rotating about a center, it's rotating about assuming the objects have no explicit sense of origin, so the nodes themselves are in a global space automatically. So if you move an object to it center itself on its origin and then apply the rotate, it would be maybe better. Or maybe I do need to include the concept of an origin, like a local origin point to which all of the nodes of the object itself are referenced. That way, when you transform something, you can do it there would be two options then. You could do a rotate, which by default would be around its local axis, which you could then specify as the origin, like the middle point of the volume. Or you could do a global thing, right? Where if an object is in space somewhere, it might be transformed. Its own local origin might be transformed from the global origin, and then you can rotate from the as if it were from the global origin. So you could like swing an object really far around a big axis, or rotate it just as if it's on its own. I might be overthinking it just a smidge. The reason I'm talking about this is because, see here, now this is facing the right way, but because I like the assumed origin of the sketch that I drew starts at 0, 0, and then the extrudes along Z. So the back corner of this is going to be its origin point. So its origin is right here, but this top view I have rotated wrong, so, and then this right view might also be, might not actually be the right view. And to test that, actually what I'm going to do is one, 3, 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, 0. If I make this 4, 0, I'll be able to discern which side is the, oh no, that won't actually help me. Okay, so this is correct, this is correct, this is wrong. So I'll change the top face now. And then maybe my thought about local origin and global origin can be an enhancement for later on. Let me make another random point here for a moment. We'll do 4, 0, 4, 2. Should be okay. Yeah, so now this is correct. And this is wrong because I don't see enough. I should see another horizontal line here and here, which would indicate that I'm seeing the right side, but right now I'm actually seeing the left side. So let me go ahead and fix that. Oh, pardon me. A little tired today, apparently. I think that's fine. I'm still capable of getting a bit of work done. Hey, I did it wrong. Let's try that one. Have a look at that. No. I've confused myself just a bit here. Well, that's okay. I'll figure it out in a moment. Actually, wait a minute. Let me do something weird here. Let's go instead of 180 around this, we'll go 170. We should see kind of a weird oblique angle here. Might provide a little bit of insight. Ugh, I keep forgetting to save it. So if I make it 10, okay, we're getting somewhere. It might actually be already correct, but the way in which my faces method is drawn, or pardon me, the way my faces function works, which I know has problems, it might just, it might be rendering the back face on the front, which would give me an incorrect view. Because this looks correct. If I make it 1, am I even going to see anything useful? Or 5, I meant, not 1. Oh man, On a completely unrelated note, I don't know if the weather where you're at is good right now, but I am loving the temperatures I'm experiencing and the sunshine. I like to do runs in the morning, like go on, I did 10 kilometers this morning, and the weather is just at that right temperature where you're not immediately sweaty. I'm really loving that. Now, I say I should be careful to label sunshine weather as good, because that actually implies that, say, rainy weather is bad, but I don't think that's the case. I really like a rainy day, rainy week even. It just changes what you can do, right? They're all, I kind of think all kinds of weather is really good, unless you're talking like actual storms and real problems. But that's a bit of a digression. I'm just really happy right now that I'm able to go outside and do nice runs. If the weather's nice where you're at, in terms of being able to go outside, I kind of suggest that you go ahead and take advantage of that if you can. It's really lovely to get some sunlight. Humans kind of love it. Major digression, but I'm cool with that. So we've got, I think this is correct, orient right. If I kind of approach it from a work in progress angle, it looks right to me. When you rotate it slightly, you can kind of see what's behind, and then it's just that this face that's being rendered in front is just an error, which is might seem like a cop-out, but I genuinely think that's the case. So there we go. That's what I would expect to see if my render faces function was completely working, but it is not completely working. So take what I can get. And so since that is looking okay, I'm going to go ahead and clean up my let's get rid of this. Get rid of those. This here. I think should make it normal again, and we'll be good to go with the next part of this. Yes, okay. So now what I want to think about is how I can have let me close this and get into a extension chunk namespace. Load file chunk.clj. Now let's switch to that namespace. What is the namespace? stylo.chunk. Okay, so we're in the namespace. There we go. We're getting completions here, so that's good. So what I want to work on now is what I have done to draw these in the quadrants like that. Oh, let me finish my thought. I manually moved the 2D view into a spot that kind of looks right. If you remember seeing that, I did it here. right? This move 510 moves the drawings into a spot where you can see them. If I instead do 0, 0 for all of these, it will cut off my drawing a bit, which is not what I want. Right? So they're all centered weirdly. They're not, that's not what I want to see. What I do want is to not have to move these manually myself, if possible. So if I make these 10 again, and I make these, they were 5, I think. Yeah, there we go. So what I want to do is have, what I'm thinking I want is a function that'll automatically, in the each quadrant, so you see how it's highlighted here, you can tell that the drawing in the quadrant isn't even centered in the quadrant. I want to be able to have the quadrant figure automatically center the contents in its box. Ouch. That seems useful to me. And in order to do that, I have to get a little bit clever, I think. Because I have this scenario where the scale that I pass into the figure changes the visible size of the drawings inside there, right? If the scale is always 1 and it's a big drawing, you'll never see it. So the scale you can set manually, and you still want to center it in there. So you have to know the bounding box of the shape in there, right? The two-dimensional bounding box of whatever drawing is in there. And then you need the center of that bounding box. And then you can, once you know the center of that bounding box and the size of the figure or the SVG container that you're drawing into, you can automatically move it to its center position, and then you can change things. So you need the width, height, scale of the container that it's in, and then you need the bounding box of the 2D shape that's being drawn inside there. And then you can calculate where to move it so that it'll look centered. I think that makes sense. So I'm going to go ahead and see if I can use, I have a bounding box function in this here that it was just temporary anyway. Not in here, not in this, but in the template part. Do I, or did I not? Maybe I moved it. Sometimes I forget. Helpers. Bounding box center. Okay, perfect. So bounding box center works on a list of points. So if I should have bounding box center, yeah, okay. So bounding box center of a list of points, right? So if I give it 0, 0 and 2, 2, it should give me 1, 1. Yes, it does. Okay, so given that is a helper available to me, my draw function in my 3D library, the chunk extension here, draw, has draw, where am I at here? Right, so draw takes it does the rotation transforms on the nodes, right? And the edges and all of that. And then for edge and edges, it finds the nodes at its indices and takes the x and y value and discards the z value. The reason for that is because I'm basically projecting onto a 2D SVG, and if the assumption is that the orientation is already correct, then the projection is very simple. You just discard z because you assume that you're looking along the z axis, which means you can discard it and you'll see only xy positions. Which works just fine. And if you apply all rotations and stuff before you discard the Z, it'll mean you can have things like isometric views, because it'll already it does all the math for you in 3D, and then you just discard the Z. So that's why that looks fine there. And on that note, I'm gonna fill up my water bottle, or it's not a bottle, it's a mason jar, but it holds water and I drink from it, so it's just fine. And I'll be back again. Be right back again. 5 minutes or so, won't be long. Back at it once again. So actually, following the logic of my drawing, pardon me, I'm thinking about how I could use my existing bounding box function to get the center of whatever shape I've got on there. And my thought is that I just get the nodes after the rotation has been applied, and then pull the nodes and just discard the Z and run BB center on those 2D on those 2D points, because all bounding box does is get the x max, y max, x min, y min, or my hands are moving them wrong, but so x max, y max, like that, x min, y min, then you have 2 points and then the bounding box in 2 dimensions is the rectangle that you draw from this point to that point, and then the center of that is the center of that rectangle. So it should work if I'm thinking about things right. And I just want to think about let me make a little test piece here. Def triangle. Okay, this triangle is going to be polygon 2D of the list of points zero, zero, 5, 0, 2.5, 7. No, we'll make it 8 for fun. Okay, so that's try. It's got nodes, edges, and a face. It's fine. And then I'm going to def xtry as the extrude of try by 2. So xtry, there we go, is a 3D shape that I can use to mess around with this. So if I run, first if I pull the nodes of xtry, which is a 3D object, right? I have this value, I have this list of nodes that have the values in their attributes, which I don't need right now. So if I do map val onto nodes of xtry, boy, typing. Now I have just a list of the values of their, of the positions of the nodes, which is good. And then let me see here. I'm just a little worried that my stream actually dropped. Did it? Let's see. Sorry, if this is still going, I'm just a little confused. I think maybe my Firefox tab crashed or something. If it's not live anymore, well, that's a bit of a shame. Huh. Sorry, I'm completely derailed for a moment. Whoop. Please bear with me. If this is still live, I wanna keep going, but I want to make sure things are working okay first. Let me just close that up entirely for a moment. Come on, computer. Computers are supposed to be helpful, and right now it's not helping me. Oops. All right. Actually, I can do one other thing while this is going on. I'm going to just switch to this for a moment. Please bear with me. I have to see if yeah, okay. Yeah, so that's good. All right, that's okay. This is a sign that I should end the stream soon, but I want to finish up something yet since the stream is still running live. I'm just having problems with my dashboard, but that's okay. Or my stream manager on Twitch. But let's go ahead and just assume that it's fine and finish up what I was talking about here. That's my bad. Okay, so what I want to do is finish up the thought I have here of get the bounding box of the rendered drawing and then go from there. So if I now do map take two of what you pass in there, so map that function onto this. There we go. I get the 2D projection of the points. Then in theory, although if I do map v, it's not that. I don't need that either. I need to here do apply vec. Wrong. Yeah, apply vec to take two of that. That should work. Nope. Let me just do it this way then. Into vector take two. There we go. Okay, so that, if I do BB center of this whole thing, there we go. I get a bounding box center, which makes sense because the width of the triangle was 5 and the height was 8. So 2.5 and 4 is the center point of the bounding box of that triangle, not the center of gravity, which in this case is totally fine. I don't need it. My Firefox is totally crashed. So if there are comments coming in right now, I actually can't see them at the moment, just as a heads up, so apologies there. I'm doing my best. But that's fine. So what I'm gonna do is make another little section in my draw. Let's go ahead here. We'll do centering in SVG. Centering, we'll just leave it there for now. Begin source Clojure. So if I do here define get 2D points of an object directly. No, I need actually the orientation as well. Orientation. So I need to do here, I need to kind of copy a little bit the idea of the drawing here. Draw function, draw edges, well, actually, here, I need this. But first, let me do this. Well, no, I'll build it right away. Why wait? Why wait? No, that doesn't make sense. Okay. Row, the object and the orientation that I want, okay, is going to be or do I want to do it, or do I want to assume, right? Because if I orient ISO of x try, it already does. Okay, let me keep this function a little simpler for now. All I need to do basically is this set of things, which I'm going to copy here. Come on. Seriously? Copy that. Silly thing. Okay. You run the bounding box center function on map into vec take 2 of this. So that's get 2D points of the object, like that. So let me try that function. Get 2D points of x try should give me the same result. Yeah. Now if I do it, get 2D points of orient ISO x try, should work, but I'll get very different points, which kind of makes sense because at that, theoretically that makes sense. Okay, so I'll go there. I'll do that. Yeah, really sorry if you're commenting and I'm not seeing anything right now. I do apologize for that. I'm just having some technical difficulties. That's all. In fact, let me try one other thing yet. I'm sidetracked anyway, so may as well go ahead and test it. I wonder if I could use my phone to well, forget it. I just want to finish up what I'm working on, and then I'm going to get going. I've been going for 2.5 hours-ish, so a little bit more, and I'll be done for the day anyway, so I'm just going to go ahead and be fine with that. Okay, so so I have this get 2D points thing. What I want to see is if it's actually going to work to pinpoint the 2D center position of what I'm drawing there. So what I want to do is I do have a dot function, right? Guess not. Why would that be? Okay, if I go to my draw namespace, annotations, label, line, arrow, okay, I'm gonna be cheesy. I'm gonna do line from 0, 0 to the calculated center point and draw that over this and see if I get the right center point as a test for this function, which will be fine with me. I think that'll work just fine. So all I want to do, list, here, line 0, 0, and the next position is going to be get 2D points of letter A, orient of letter A. But what I have to do is orient ISO that first. Is that gonna work? We will find out. Get 2D points doesn't exist because it's not tangled into the chunk file. That's why. So here, if I copy this, paste this here, save this, and then save this, there we go. Okay. Oh, right. So that would work in theory, except that this here, get 2D points, it hasn't scaled. I would have to technically multiply it by the scale here, right? Try it. I'm confusing myself a bit here. So map v multiply onto this and repeat map v line list. Try that one out. Still no dice there. Oh, I probably have to move this whole thing too. Wrap it together like that. Right? Okay, we're getting somewhere. Is that right? No, it's not. So the bounding box is like that, and this needs a bit of thinking. don't need the map v after all, maybe. Okay. Let's clean that off of here. Does need to be inside the move. Speaking of which, I should do this. There we go. Okay, we're getting somewhere. Move the face and the line. There we go. It's a little more clear. Nope, come on. There we go. Okay. This arguably is more closely linked to the, like, that looks correct. So let me test one more thing. Let me try the bounding box center of the front face. Should be about here where my mouse is pointing to, or my cursor, I guess, is pointing to. That should be about right. And I'm gonna try that. That'll be the last thing I try for the day, and then I'm gonna get going on to some other stuff. So that'll be okay to do. All I have to do is this front face thing here. Wrap this move in a list, like I've done here. Wrap the move, or inside the move, do line 0, 0. Get 2D points of orient front, letter A. Move list. Okay, save that. And unless I type out something, that should work. That should put a line, yeah, from 0, 0 is there, and its center point is, in fact, it looks like it's in the right spot, which is very encouraging for me. It's very encouraging. Oh man, so my dashboard finally decided to wake up, I guess. It's now connected fully again. I'm not sure what crashed, what happened there. That was a little strange, but call it okay. If you were watching and chatting at any point there and I missed it, I really am sorry. Nothing to do about it. Yeah, that's all I gotta say. It goofed. The technology has failed me. That's just gonna have to be okay for today. So the next thing I could do is I'm trying to think about a smart way to not redo a bunch of things. Like, I don't want to be calculating the rotations in a bunch of different functions, right? I kind of want to do it once. But the only thing I can think to do right now is something like this. If I get the move coordinates, I need the width height scale and the object that's being drawn in there, right? Because what I can do then is do a let thinking, yeah, okay, so let center, so drawing center is going to be BB, or get 2D points of the object, the rendered object, or the renderable object, whatever. And the window center is width times scale, right? Yeah. Divided by 2. The width divided by 2 scale. Oh, and then the same with the height. Let me change this up just a bit. Map v, this function scale, not s, over width height gets me the width and height divided by 2, so you get the center point of that. So then the move position would be just map v plus DC WC DC. Does that make any sense? Let's find out. If I have get move chords of, let's give it a the width. Well, okay, first of all, let me just calculate this for a minute. 720 divided by 2 is what? 360. I could have done that in my head, but I didn't. Fine, whatever. No big deal. Well, okay. Get move chords 360, 360, and the scale is this weird thing that I'm doing, 1 divided by 25.4. Okay, and the object is orient isometric letter A. Oh no, that's not in the REPL here. X try. Does it give an answer? It gives something. Okay, so let me try that on here. Okay, instead of this, you move by get move chords of 360, 360, this is silly. Why is that still like that? Whatever. Well, 25.4. Okay, that's that. And then the shape is orient iso letter A. Okay, so that's the move coordinates. Let's see what happens. Unable to resolve it? It's in there, isn't it? Oh, maybe I didn't save it. Oh, my bad. Hey, it built, but it's way off. Alright, inspect. Let me check something. My apartment neighbors lost their cat. They'll find it back somewhere in the building, I'm sure. Okay, so this SVG has a transform that doesn't make sense. Oh, excuse me. That has a transform somewhere that doesn't make any sense. It's a massive number. This should be, yeah, divided by that, like that. Maybe that'll be good. Yep. Okay, so sanity check. That's not right. And the reason it's not right is because well, I don't know why. Let me draw another thing here for a moment. Let's see if it makes any sense. If we do, we're on the right track. I'm on the right track for sure. It's getting better, but it's not what I need. Actually, wait a second. Let me try one final thing, because I just realized maybe it should be, instead of plus, it should be minus here. Let's see. Save that. Letter A. Okay, that's we're getting somewhere here. There we go. Okay. Sweet. I'm actually pretty excited about that. That's pretty cool. It means I have all the pieces to wrap it into some nice function where I could say quadrant figure, this scale, and it'll nicely, theoretically, center things for me. Now, I just forgot to check this earlier. I want to do this. I wonder if this looks right if I change the, yeah, more or less it does. Nope, not quite. Something went wrong. No. Something is right. I just have to build in, I have to properly glue together these functions, right? Because the move is independent of the box right now, but there it is. I have it correctly centering in the box, which is very exciting. That's exactly what I was hoping to do. On that note, I am going to sign off because I want to get a little bit of work done offline. I'm very happy with how things are going. And yeah, making progress. Thanks for watching. If you're watching now, I hope you're having a good time. If you're watching this somewhere else in the future, as a VOD or on YouTube or something like that, feel free to leave comments. I'm keeping this up, and I want to keep getting better. So comments regarding the content, what you liked, what could maybe improve, what you would maybe want to see in the future, that kind of stuff would actually be really helpful. And I would appreciate that. Also, feel free to follow, like, comment, subscribe, you know, all that, all the engagement stuff. It seems silly, but I can see why it's very helpful to get. I understand why people ask for it. It's not necessarily out of vanity. It's just out of a need to surface some attention, right? Which is probably okay. On that note, I'll be back again tomorrow, 12:30. Probably, well, definitely tomorrow's stream's going to be shorter because I have to go to a meeting. So, that's just going to be the way that is. That'll be totally fine because for the month of June, I'm still streaming every single day, starting at 12:30, going for 2 or 3 hours. And occasionally I've got an evening stream where I might play a little bit of my Switch game library or do some games related programming because that's fun as well. On that note, thanks for your time. I really appreciate it, and I will see you around another time because I'm going to get going. Have a good one.